Today, I am going to discuss to you about the social, legal, and ethical issues for computers and the internet. A gift of fire, privacy, and personal information. These are the topics that we are going to discuss about it. The impact of computer technology, Big Brother is watching you, consumer information, more privacy risks, protecting privacy of education, technology, and markets, Prote- protecting law and regulation. The impact of computer technology. Computers are needed for the invasion of privacy. Computers simply make new threats possible, and old threats more potent. Privacy can mean freedom from intrusion, control of information about oneself, freedom of surveillance. Invisible information gathering. Examples: satellite surveillance, caller ID, 800 or 900 number calls, loyalty card, web tracking data cookies, peer-to-peer monitoring, and others. Recall an example of invisible information gathering about you. Satellite surveillance, collection of personal information about someone without personal knowledge. Caller ID is a facility that identifies and displays the phone numbers of incoming calls made of a particular line. Loyalty card is a card issued by supermarket or chain store to a customer and used to record credit points awarded for money spent in the store. Web tracking data cookies. Tracking cookies are simply files that store certain identifying information about you and as a user. For example, say you visit Facebook. Facebook will not put a tracking cookie in your browser. Peer-to-peer information. A computer system which are connected to each other via the internet, that files can be shared directly between systems on the network without the need of a central server. The secondary use. Using information for a purpose other than the one for which it was obtained. These are the few examples. Sale or trade of consumer information to other businesses. Credit check by a prospective employer. Government agency use of consumer database. Recall an occasion when a secondary use of your personal information was made. Using information for a purpose other than one for which it was obtained. Computer matching. Combining and comparing information from more than one database. Example: sharing of government agencies' databases to detect fraud by recipients of government programs. Creating consumer dossiers from various business databases. Recall an example of computer matching that has appeared in the news. Combining and comparing the information is more important, especially when you are doing some database. So a lot of information will be included. Profiling. Using data in computer files to predict likely behaviors of individuals or people. Some example: business engage in profiling to determine consumer propensity toward a product or service. Government agencies use profiling to create description of possible terrorists. How might profiling be used with your personal information? How might profiling be used with your information? The act of process of extrapolating information about a person based on a trace of tendencies. Consumer profiling, specifically the act of suspecting or targeting a person on the basis of observed characteristic or behavior. Racial profiling. Next, monitoring and tracking. These are the examples of monitoring and tracking. GPS stands for Global Positioning System. Cell phones, black boxes in automobiles, other wireless appliances. What is the impact of GPS-equipped children wristwatch? For me, the impact for the children, many watches transmit the location via GPS and a mobile modem so that the parents can see the location of their child or children on their smartphone. The defensing function allows the setting up and safety zones in which the child may be present. An alarm is triggered automatically only when it is exceeded. Next, federal government databases. So, these are the purposes of federal government databases. Determine eligibility for jobs and programs, reduce waste, detect fraud, law enforcement. So, these are the regulations of federal government database. Privacy Act of 1974, Computer Matching and Privacy Protection Act of 1988. So the question is, which government databases contains your personal information? Organizational, physical, and technical security measures for personal data protection, encryption, and access to sensitive information maintained by the government agency, considering the most appropriate standard recognized by the information and communication technology industry. So, I forgot to discuss you what is Big Brother's watching you. Big Brother's watching you means he refer to government surveillance of the people with listening devices and cameras in totalitarian society where Big Brother is the lead of the totalitarian regime. Next, the Fourth Amendment, expectation of privacy. Government rights are limited. Government must have probable cause to search private premises or seize documents. So these are the privacy challenges of Fourth Amendment. New sensing and surveillance technologies enable the government access to private premises without physical entry. New technologies provide the government with access to huge amount of personal data in the business databases. Courts allow some and seizures of computer without search warrant. The question here, has technology strengthened or weakened the spirit of the Fourth Amendment? The Fourth Amendment does not protect your home computer. In a dangerously flawed decision unsealed today, the Federal District Court in Virginia ruled that criminal defendant has no reasonable expectation of privacy in his personal computer located inside his home and other information of individuals or a person. Consumer information. Consumer databases like gathering information. So these are the example of gathering information. Warranty card, purchasing record, membership list, web activity, change of address form, much more. Recall ways in which you have contributed to consumer database. This means you can reach out to them about future opportunities, improve your lead generation strategy, and better gauge the actual level of interest a consumer has in your company based on the way they act on your site and respond to advertisement in another way. Next, consumer databases. Limiting collection. Use sharing and sell the personal data. Consumers can take measures to restrict the use of your personal information. Some information sharing is prohibited by law. Some information sharing is prohibited by published privacy policies. What measures do you take to limit consumer information gathered about you? So these are the example of what you are going to do to limit the consumer informations to gather you. So take security seriously, gather information ethically, decide what you really need, invest in customer database software, back up your data, clean up your customer data, train your team, think about access. Next, marketing. Using consumer information like trading, buying customer lists, telemarketing, data mining, mass marketing, webs ad, spam, unsolicited email. How are children affected by marketers using consumer information? For me, responses of page suggest children had relatively developed storage and retrieval abilities, but may not have been able to provide such information in a purely verbal interaction. A potential problem with children as focus group participants, however, relates to their well-documented susceptibility to peer influence. Next, about credit bureaus. Use of consumer information. Evaluate credit risk of applicant, marketing, regulation, FCRA, and stands for Fair Credit Reporting Act, self-regulated by privacy principles. If you are denied credit, what are the rights based on the FCRA? You have the right to have reliable public assistance considered in the same manner as the income. If you are denied credit, you have a legal right to know why. Next, Social Security number. Of course, the content information here in Social Security numbers appear in databases like employer records, government databases, school record, credit records, consumer application, many other databases. So what are the risks of using SSNS as identifiers? The biggest problem with any personal identifier system is establishing and maintaining an error-free link between the actual person and associated number. The Internal Revenue Service recently reported that, according to them, that 6.5 million cases of missing, invalid or duplicate the Social Security numbers fixed in 1995. National ID card system. If implemented, the card should contain your name, address, telephone number, photo, and SSN. So the question is, what other personal information should a national ID card contain? Commonly included text fields are name, date of birth, employee number, DBS number, job title, national number, start and expiration date, vehicle registration number, emergency contact, phone or phone extension number, and the department. So that's are the information that must be included in the national ID card. A national ID card system. If implemented, the system could allow access to your medical information, tax records, citizenship, credit history, and much more. Are the benefits of a national ID system greater than the risks? For me, the Filipino identification system will consolidate all government-issued ID system into one to improve government services and limit the red tape in government transactions. It will lower cost, streamline transaction, and provide ease and inconvenience to the, especially when you are claiming money. You don't need to use any other of identification card. Next, personal health and medical information. These are the data can included history and substance abuse, treatment for sexually transmitted disease, extent of psychiatric help received, any suicide attempts, diagnosis of disease like diabetes and cancer, use of prescribed medicine. Why would marketers want access to your medical information? Healthcare marketing allow you to increase your patient connection and nurture those relationships to form long-term loyal patients. Successfully healthcare marketing leads to successful patient engagement, and successful patient engagement leads to a blooming practice. Next, public record, available in paper, form, or an online. Actually, these are the public record that available online or in a paper form, like bankruptcy, arrest, marriage license application, divorce proceeding, property ownership, salary if employed by state, federal government, wills and trust. How should access to public records be controlled? It must be controlled because these are very sensitive information that accordingly here. So we must respect the privacy of a person and their properties. Next, education must include awareness of how the technology works, how the technology is being used, the risks brought on by the technology, how to limit unwanted use of personal information, applicable state and federal laws and regulations. The question is, how do you limit unwanted use of your personal information? Actually, you have the right to limit your personal information. Like treat the about me fields. Mostly sa database, the fields are only an optional information. It's up to you if you're going to put your information there or not. That's why they called optional. Become a master of privacy settings. Know the people, your friend. Tapos, create the use of limit list. Always log out when you're done. Create strong private password. That's how you limit your personal information, especially when you are using social media like Facebook account, email account, and etc. Technology enhance privacy using cookie disabler, option in, option out options, anonymous web service, P3P platform for privacy preferences, good password, audit trails. What privacy enhancing technology do you use regularly? For me, the platform of privacy preferences project. It is an absolute protocol allowing websites to declare their intended using information they collect about the browser's user. How do you read the privacy policies as websites you're frequent? Actually, this is regarding the market response. Markets can protect your privacy by using trusted third parties, adhering to established privacy policies, purchasing consumer information directly from consumer, developing and selling privacy enhancing technologies and services. Have you read the privacy policies and websites you're frequent? The data privacy policy should give you a sense of what the company does to maintain the security of personal information. To empower the consumers to better understand and control the data that what they are going to share. But they're only useful if easily understood that people actually read them. Next, this is the protecting privacy law and regulation. Philosophical views. Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis. Individuals are the right to prohibit publication of personal facts and photos. Judith Harvis Thompson. No distinct right to privacy. Privacy rights result from the rights to our property, body, and contacts. Transaction. Transaction have two parties, often with conflicting preferences about privacy. How should rights to information about transaction between two parties be assigned? For me, according to my research, the transaction has to right confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. Confidential information shall collectively refer to all non-public or information or material disclosure provided by one party to other, either orally or in writing, or obtained by the recipient party from a third party or any other source, concerning any aspect of the business of affairs of the other party or its affiliates. As such terms defined Rule 12B under B, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, including without limitation any information material pertaining to products, formulate, specification, design, processes, and more on. And about non-disclosure, both parties shall keep strictly confidential and shall not disclose or cause or permit to disclose to any person or entity any information about potential sale or a portion of the assets of equity securities of the company. The transaction or the fact that either party has received the confidential information and is considering the transaction and shall discussion between the company and related thereto, except the both parties they make such disclosure. It has received the reasonable advice of its outside counsel that such disclosure must be made in order to that such party not commit a violation of law. So that's my answer according to my research. Next, contrasting views. Free market view. The parties of a transaction are viewed as equal. Truth in information gathering. Strong reliance on contacts, freedom of speech and commerce. Consumer protection view. The parties of a transaction are viewed differently. More stringent consent requirements required by law. Strong limitation on secondary uses of information required by law. Legal restriction and consumer profiling. The question here is, how should the privacy of consumer transaction be regulated? Alerts let you know whenever there's activity in your account, so it's a good idea to register all your cards for them. Every bank has its own safeguards in place for you. Peace of mind. Talk to your bank to find out what they are. Instead, call your bank to make a report in case your savings was lost or whatsoever. Contracts and regulation. Basic legal framework. Enforce an agreement contract. Publish privacy policy. Set defaults for situation not in a contract. Requiring specific consent policies. Adhere to informed consumer consent. Use of opt-in policies. Legal regulation. Determine effectiveness, direct and hidden cost, and any loss of services of inconvenience. So, we call a situation where you exchange personal information for some benefit. My answer is, how should the privacy transaction be? Wait, 20. This means that you are required to post a legally binding privacy policy that informs user that the information you're collecting and that protects your personal data. It also states that your application can only use collected information for the purposes you stated at the same time and securing the user consent. Next, contacts and regulation. This is about ownership of personal data. Can an individual own? Facts. marriage license in public records, personal information, etc., your date of birth, freedom of speech. Prohibiting communication of information may violate the First Amendment. When does protecting privacy conflict with freedom of speech? In general, the First Amendment guarantees the right to express ideas and information on a basic level. It means that people can express an opinion, even an unpopular or unsavory one, without fear of government censorship. It protects all forms of communication, from speeches to art and other media. E- EU or European Union privacy regulation. Key points. Limited collection limited of collection of personal data. Of course, we respect that. Data must be up to date and destroyed when no longer needed. Example, you're doing an email, then you are not longer to use it. Actually, you can delete it, so your information will not be spread, or your account will not be hacked by someone. That's how you do to protect your personal information. Consent for sharing data is required. Of course, when you are sharing some like videos or facts about someone, you have to ask her permission before you share it. As sensitive data like religion can only be provided with consent. When you are sharing about religion, like example, Muslim or Christian's religion, you you have no right to post anything, especially a sensitive information or sensitive data. You ask. That's only my idea. Notify consumers about the collection and intended purpose of data. Restricted access and sharing criminal conditions. Can the European privacy regulation work in the US? I think the US overrules EU privacy standard rather than being compatible with the GDPR. The US Cloud Act overrules it. Federal laws acquire US-based software companies and IT services providers to ensure that the authorities can have access to all stored data, including data stored on foreign server. That's all my discussion. Thank you.